Well, friends, you can consider me firmly corrected. You should go out and buy a Sony A6600, and here's why. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So, I mean, in all fairness, we all change our minds from time to time, despite how discourse on the internet usually goes. It's actually normal for people to change their minds when new information comes in. How crazy is that? Speaking of which, a few months ago, I said this. So what, right? Is the A6600 worth the premium price over the A6400? And for me, no. Well, fast forward to February of 2020, and I'm gonna eat those words. Should I write those down and physically eat them? Because this is my personal A6600 that I bought from my local Best Buy. And quick disclaimer, I only make these you should buy videos on cameras that I've personally purchased. I will always put my money where my mouth is before recommending you do the same. So I'm gonna spend the next, lots of words telling you why I bought one and why you should also buy one. First off, let's talk image quality. The A6600 actually has a 6K sensor that's built into this body, but if you've watched my videos on it, you know that it doesn't output 6K, it outputs 4K. Well, what it does, much like the new $10,000 FX9 cinema camera and the other Sony cameras, it takes 6K worth of information and squeezes that down into 4K. It takes it and it squeezes it down samples it to 4K. You get a lot more color information and detail in your files doing it this way. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend I'm an imaging engineer. Is that what they are? And most of the bigger companies using Sony sensors do this anymore. Nikon, Panasonic being the two currently big downsamplers. And because of this, I think the image quality coming out of the A6600 is some of Sony's best ever. I mean, I've been pretty darn pleased with what I've gotten out of this camera over the last month or so. I've really liked the Sony color since the A7 III hit the market, which is what we're shooting on now, and it just gets better and better with every new release. The A6400 is amazing, the RX100 Mark VII is amazing. I like that they continue to iterate each time they release a camera. And it's not only the image quality itself that's really good, but you get unlimited recording on this camera. You hit the record button, or you hit the shutter button because you've reprogrammed the shutter button to be a record button, do that. You hit that button, and so long as there's power in media, it will just keep going. Now at this price point, it's only really Sony and Panasonic doing that. Canon cameras still have a 30-minute record limit, as well as Fuji, maybe the X-T4, here's hoping. But you combine this with the battery that we'll talk about later, and this thing just by itself, it can record for crazy amounts of time. I mean, look how big this battery is for how small this body is. That's a substantial chunk of the size of this camera is all battery. Next up, let's talk about the other side of the image quality coin, audio. Now, one of the major strong suits with any Sony camera, not just this one, is the internal preamps are pretty darn good. You can take real budget microphones and get fantastic results because you get a lot of room in here. You can manually set the audio gain inside of here to increase or decrease the overall internal gain in ways that just let you maximize almost any microphone. Now, my personal rule of thumb is when it comes to audio, I try to keep my peaks, like my hooray, I'm so excited, I try to keep those at -12. And if you have the camera doing the heavy lifting, it's easy to drop that gain so that you can continue to do that. Now, if you have a powered microphone like the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus or one of the DD options, you can also drop that gain all the way down and really let the microphone do the work. And unlike a lot of other camera brands, this really lets you get this lets you get the most out of those +10 and +20 decibel settings on those microphones. But my personal favorite part about this entire Sony line is their external XLR adapters, and it works on all of their interchangeable lens cameras. So the K3M that we are currently using to record the audio, you can use it on the A6600, the A6400, the A7 III. All of these cameras can have absolutely fantastic 48-volt phantom powered audio. Now, it is an expensive device. When you start, I don't recommend that device as much as I recommend the camera. I do recommend it, but it is gonna make this much more pricey. I just like that it works with so many more cameras. If you take the Panasonic, for example, the DMW XLR1, it only works with their GH5, GH5S, and S1 line of cameras. It doesn't work on their lower end options. Here, you get access to all of that. Now let's talk about the thing that Sony has started doing better than basically anyone else. Anyone else, fight me. Well, don't fight me, but I'm fighting you in my mind. The Sony phase detection autofocus is insane, and this tiny camera has the most cutting edge of this cutting edge tech. Now, I could go into how many phase detection points or how the hybrid system works with contrast and phase detection together, but I'm an everyday dad, and all I care about is that it works. Does it work? Yes, it works fantastically well. The new thing that both the A6600 and the A7R IV have in common is when recording video, you keep the eye tracking autofocus, which is insane. The A7 III, the A6400, and the last gen of cameras can only do face tracking. I mean, honestly, can you really tell the difference? We're doing face tracking right now. I doubt you could tell. But I can say the Sony A6600 has never failed me for focus yet. When you see that box around your face or eye, it's locked in, and it doesn't matter how shallow the depth of field is, you can really trust this autofocus to work in most situations. Sure, look, nothing's 100%. Nothing on this planet is 100%. Even Sony's autofocus will fail from time to time, but this is absolutely the best autofocusing system I've ever seen. True statement, I would pay so much money to have this autofocusing system put in every camera from now on. I would pay so much for that. The autofocus is so good that it'll pick up through apps or pictures or screens from other cameras. I mean, heck, it picked up my eye from the flip screen on the S1H while we were making the tips and tricks video a few weeks ago. It's bonkers. Bonkers. Plus, if you were one of those 24 frames per second shooter and you really want to plug it into an external monitor, you can retain that face eye tracking video autofocus. I can't say the same for my A7 III. Sad face. The only way you can keep it in the A7 III is record externally, which is what we're doing right now. Next up on the train of awesomeness, the flip up screen. Now, yes, it's not fully touch enabled, and yes, that sucks. Double yes. But having a powerful camera like this be even more transportable due to having a screen built into it is awesome. Heck, most of the reason I don't use my A7 III more than for stills and these talking headshots is precisely because I don't want to bring a cage. And I don't want to bring a monitor, and I don't want to bring batteries, and I don't want to bring cables. Seriously, if you haven't heard me say this before, you're new to the channel, because I say this all the time. I hate making Frankenrigs. It just drives me nuts. And much like the fantastic autofocus, all cameras need to have some kind of a flip screen. I'm just saying. Plus, you get a few extra nice things here. One of the things that I don't like about the RX 100 Mark VII or the A7 III screen is I wear sunglasses almost all the time when I'm outdoors, and those screens are basically incompatible with polarized sunglasses. Guess what the everyday dad wears all the time? Polarized sunglasses. Thank you, person that wasn't there. The A6600 screen does not have such a problem, thankfully, and it can continue to work for me when I'm out and about. Plus, you can set it to like daylight brightness, and you will absolutely be able to see this sucker in bright daylight, fixing the A6500 problem of basically being useless outside. But the biggest actual change over the A6400 from a practical standpoint is battery life. The A6600 is Sony's only current APS-C camera that uses the Z-type battery. And that's a pretty big deal. For me personally, it's a big deal because I want to use the A7 III and I want to match my lenses and batteries as much as possible. I don't want to have different lens sets. I don't want to have different batteries that I'm always charging. But for everyone else, being able to have this kind of battery life on such a small camera is legitimately crazy. And yes, I know I've said this before, but you can always buy more batteries if you want the NP-F50 batteries. But I do think it's a good investment here because not only does it give you longer recording capabilities, but the way they reworked the hand grip to fit this battery makes this the first real holdable Sony crop sensor camera. This is gonna sound surprising because I don't really talk photography, but I have done some family photography at weddings with an A6400 and the 85mm G Master lens, and it is not comfortable to hold at all. It sucks to hold. But the A6600 has a much deeper groove right here, and it's just so much nicer to hold with bigger lenses. And lenses are getting bigger, so this is good. And not just the battery life like I mentioned a few seconds ago, but this also has the Sony E-mount, which to me is the most interoperable lens mount on the market. Nikon and Canon might get there in the future someday, but that day is not today. The lens that I'm currently using on the A7 III could easily put on the A6600, and vice versa. You only need to buy one kind of lens when operating in the E-mount ecosystem. And let's say you do want to go crazy and buy that $10,000 FX9 that I'm totally not considering buying. But if you did that, not me, if you did that, you could use the same lenses with autofocus enabled. And that's why I like Sony so much. It's like Apple, in that everything just works so well together. And last but certainly, okay, it is kind of least here, the in-body image stabilization. The A6600 does have Sony's internal in-body image stabilization. So the sensor does move around a little bit to take out some of the shake, giving even unstabilized lenses a little bit of a smoother look. but it doesn't work that great. Like, it's not the best. I'm super happy it's there, but if you were looking for GH5 or S1H levels of stabilization, well, go buy a GH5 or S1H. But besides all these individual little specs and features that I do really like, and I would recommend the camera over those things, it's really greater than the sum of its parts. Like, all of these things together are better than just the individual pieces. All of them combined together to make this tiny camera, because it is still a small rangefinder style camera, it just turns this into basically an all-in-one powerhouse for video production. You can get super shallow depth of field if you want, and you can keep that easily in focus because of the autofocus. The audio is great and won't immediately take people out of your videos. The lenses are fantastic and are some of the best that you can buy, and they will stay with you if you decide to get into bigger, higher end cameras. The image is nice and sharp with great colors. It is just so easy to get a usable image. I bought one. And like you might have noticed, the last 6 or 7 videos have been me either talking about the A6600 or comparing something to the A6600 because I love this camera. It's totally grown on me over the last month, and when I needed to send it back, I immediately went out and bought another one. So if you are looking to upgrade your current video capabilities, you should absolutely go out and get a Sony A6600. I have zero problems telling you to go buy one because this is a fantastic, fantastic camera. And if you like this video and you do eventually go out and buy an A6600, click here, click on the light over here, the light that surrounds the A6600, click here and find my best tips and tricks for getting the most out of the A6600. Planning. Thanks for watching.